Hey, this is Notser, and I want to talk about aircraft carriers because I feel like the gameplay is very bad right now. If you play destroyers, cruisers, battleships, they have identity. They have strengths, they have weaknesses that you work off of and you minimize. You have real strategy. You can even decide now what modules you want to load into, and that does change the way you play the game. It really does. I'm shocked at how well the module adjustments have worked out. I have completely different builds in completely different ships, and I really enjoy it. Some have really fast turret traverse, some are laser-like accurate. Some have torpedo systems with a really fast reload cycle, some have a really slow but a really long range. That all feels great. But that choice, before you go into combat, is minimal compared to the aircraft carrier. For the aircraft carriers, they have to decide how they're going to play a match without even seeing what they're going into. They don't know how many aircraft carriers they're going up against, what type, how many battleships, cruisers, destroyers. They have to decide, are we going to be anti-air? Are we going to be anti-ship? Are we going to be a little bit of both? For some of them, they have no choice. I think the most important change that needs to be made is they need to do away with the idea that you have a loadout that you take into combat, and it completely identifies and informs your playstyle for the rest of the match without even seeing who you're going up against, what map you're on, what type of enemies they happen to be. Now, I know dive bombers are not the same as fighters, but it's a game, it's 20 minutes, we need to condense it. So what I propose we do is allow the player to decide dive bomber, torpedo bomber, fighter, whatever they want. They can have 6 torpedo bombers if they want. Now, some of you are going crazy. This is absolutely broken, and it is without a resource. We introduce a resource. The resource will be intel. Carriers will be required to gather intel in every single gameplay in order to pull more powerful units. And this intel can be associated with identifying the enemy location, active intel gathering. Perhaps a aircraft carrier has the potential to identify if a player has used damage control, defensive fire, if they've been in an area long enough. Right now, there is absolutely nothing that highlights the fact that the player has used a critical cooldown through a hotkey system or whatever. You just have to be a good player and realize there's an opening for me with whatever I'm trying to do. So this is how we introduce it and make it a part of the game, and it'll better inform players and it'll make it more compelling. Now, how do they gather this intel, Notser? Well, obviously, you want to identify targets, so maybe you get a bonus for the amount of ships that you identify right off the bat. I would also like to see some sort of mechanism that highlights the fact that you're within a certain range of a ship. If you're within a certain range of a ship, you can gather information related to a cooldown. Maybe their propulsion's knocked out. Maybe their steering's knocked out. Maybe one of their guns is knocked out. Maybe you highlight that fact for your team while you're in the area. And this area would be visible for the player in the aircraft carrier, so they know, okay, here's where I need to be. So, you're at the start of the match. You have a certain allotment of scout squadrons, and it's based on the percentage of total squadrons. For the Japanese, you're going to have maybe 1 or 2 more scout squadrons than the Americans. However, the Americans have better intel gathering per squadron. You know, maybe it's easier for them to identify defensive fire, steering, propulsion, that sort of thing. Now, as you are playing the game with just your scout squadrons at the start of the match, you are gathering intel. And the more people you keep scouted, the more cooldowns you identify, the more stuff you're doing with your scouts, the more resources you are gathering so you can pull more powerful squadrons. If you want to, you can aggressively get fighter squadrons out very quickly to counter the enemy's scout squadrons. But you're sacrificing the potential to pull torpedo or dive bombers, because obviously you only have a certain number of squadrons that you can use total, because that's a limitation of the game engine. But you can kill off your squadron, Maybe you allow the player to land and rearm, that sort of thing. But once you get into a position where you have a player actively trying to gather resources and they're deciding what type of units they want to pull, then you have a way more compelling gameplay for the aircraft carrier. There's way more numbers that you can crunch and say, this is a good player. It's not just purely damage or killing. You can really get into some really cool builds too. Maybe a certain guy is just going to be the fighter guy. Maybe a certain guy is just going to be the torpedo guy. I would also really like them to get rid of the idea that tiers impact the speed of the aircraft. I know that's actually true to history, Notser. It's not fun. A higher tier torpedo bomber has an inherent advantage over a lower tier in getting into a position that just can't be countered by a battleship, a cruiser, or a destroyer. It's just straight up harder for the battleships, the cruisers, and the destroyers to play against that. And then they just lose all interest in countering it the right way. You should allow a player, if they play correctly, to minimize the number of torpedo or dive bombers that could potentially hurt you. And it should basically work off of the same skills that you teach all throughout the tiers. It doesn't work that way right now. Right now, a Saipan has a huge advantage over the other tier 7s because of the speed of the aircraft, because of the health of the aircraft, because of the damage capabilities of the aircraft. It really isn't fair. Yes, there are smaller squadrons, but squadron size really doesn't have an impact when you're going after a battleship and you're just trying to get in position to drop your torpedoes and do massive damage. It's just easier with a faster squadron. Now, could you allow the player to decide via modules? Hey, I'm going to have a faster squadron. Hey, I'm going to have a more healthy squadron. Mine's going to do more damage per second. Absolutely. I think that is compelling. I think that is more interesting. The faster squadron is going to be a little bit more fragile. The slower squadron is going to be a little bit more healthy. The more damage, you're really sacrificing a lot. If you get one attack off, you are golden, right? So, in summary, at the start of the match, you've got scout squadrons. You send them out. You gather intel. It's a resource that you need in order to pull your attack squadrons, your fighter, your dive bomber, and your torpedo bomber. The scout squadrons can identify the cooldowns on a target. They can also enhance your personal attack runs on that target. Maybe the torpedo and the dive bombers are inherently weak, but with this enhancement in extra intel, maybe you know the dead zone of their AA protection, you will be able to pull off a more successful attack. This will also communicate to a player that I probably am going to be attacked. Let's group up. Now, this is not more or less information than currently exists. Let's say you're a battleship and there's a destroyer near you and you need help. You communicate that to your team. You try and get close to friendly destroyers and friendly cruisers for that protection. The same thing would apply. It would be obvious that the scout aircraft has just identified you as a potential target. And that is good counterplay. It's not good counterplay when you don't give the player the ability to counter what's coming. That was the problem with the initial version of the aircraft carriers. You could drop too close and just wipe out a target. That's not fun for both sides. It is nice to kill targets because that's the goal, but it's not compelling gameplay. There's no counterplay there. And once you've decided on what you want to build, maybe you build all torpedoes and you are going after battleships. There is an inherent risk related to that because it'll take a lot of resources to pull that. You will have to wait a long time before you can impact the match, and that could be a tell to your opponent. Oh, I haven't seen any attack squadrons by him. He must be saving up for torpedoes. My next grouping will be fighter related. I think that would be fun. I think that'd be really cool. Now, one thing I'd like to see removed is the slow that's applied when a fighter is engaged with another fighter or whatever squadron. It's really annoying and it takes away any skill in the control. I also dislike how you control your units and the clicking and the double clicking. It's not as clean as an RTS should be. One of the biggest issues that I find, if you try and click in the same area as the waypoint you have set, you sort of grab it and it interrupts your attack. That's not how other RTSs work. In StarCraft, for example, I can spam click that waypoint area 1,000 times and it's never going to be able to interact with it. Why would I? I don't need to rearrange my waypoint with my mouse. I can just reset the waypoint. I think everyone will admit that StarCraft 2 control scheme is near perfect for an RTS. It feels so smooth. You have waypoints. You can set your waypoints to different targets. You can queue up actions. They could bring that back without the slow. The slow effect really made it overpowered. You could just send your fighters and keep attacking without having to actually be actively controlling. But without the slow, the player can move away from you. So you sort of have to predict where they're going, maybe box them in. So get rid of the slow that's applied for fighters. Get rid of the waypoint interaction after the fact. Nobody really asks for that in an RTS. I don't ever see someone in StarCraft saying, you know what, I wish I could move the waypoint I just set by grabbing and moving it around. They all just reset the waypoint. It feels so much better, and you don't have accidents where you're trying to use your automatic drop, or your manual drop, not automatic, when you're trying to use your manual drop and you've clicked on your waypoint. That's one of the first things you learn as an aircraft carrier. You need to like pull your waypoint through the target so you never interact with it and interrupt your attack run. But I think that should just be out of the game. I think it's just clunky. It makes it frustrating for players to try and pick up and learn. It's just not fun. So what do you think of my aircraft carrier ideas? I really appreciate all the input, all the support. I go into games and I constantly get, hey, it's Notser. You do a great job. I really appreciate your videos. I watch you all the time. That's the nicest thing you can ever say to me. And hopefully I am nice back to you. If I've ever missed you in a reply, I'm sorry. I thank you profusely for all the support you give me. But I think the aircraft carrier gameplay needs to take the next step. I think it's just not compelling enough right now. There's not enough counterplay. There's not enough choices for the player. And there's not enough scouting that's going on for the team. I hope that my ideas will fix the issues. They sound like they do to me, but I could be completely wrong. But I'm just going off of RTSs. RTSs are designed like they are currently for a reason. It's compelling. It works. I don't know why they didn't do it. There are examples of non-standard or non-traditional RTSs that they could have referenced to. Natural selection is a great example. And even then, they have a resource that they have to gather. It works really well. It absolutely 100% works when you have to deal with a resource. Thank you for watching this long. I really appreciate it. The game in the background's a little depressing though, because, I mean, you saw it. We were fighting off aircraft. I killed a lot of enemy aircraft. I killed a lot of enemy ships, but it just wasn't enough for the team. And it's just one of those things where you try your best and it isn't good enough. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.